If there was ever a place on Earth where a UFO was going to appear, it's this place.
The sun's coming up.
Hello everyone and welcome to the CoSM Podcast. We have a great episode for you today, a conversation between Alex, Allyson, and Duncan Trussell. You may know Duncan from his podcast, The Duncan Trussell Family Hour, his appearances on the Joe Rogan Experience, or his new hit Netflix show, The Midnight Gospel, an animated series that ties in audio from his podcast into a vibrant psychedelic journey through a multiverse simulator. In this episode, they have an intimate discussion not just about the Midnight Gospel, but about the struggles and rewards that come from being a new parent. These are three of my favorite minds in the world coming together, so it is an honor to bring to you Alex, Allyson, and Duncan Trussell.
Hello, Duncan. Welcome to the CoSM Podcast.
Thank you.
You know, you are our great inspiration for podcasting. And so finally, after all these years, here we are. And so
Thank you.
Thanks for
having me.
Agreeing to be a guest today.
Well, y'all are always in my podcast studio. I want to show you a couple of things, if I might. Look at this. This sits above my computer, so I can always have Padmasambhava here.
Vajra Guru.
So, yes, this is always, I'm always looking at this. And then, this sounds a little dark, but it isn't. I have my dad's ashes here, and look what I put in front of his ashes. 1 second.
Wow.
Creating a better world, bronze.
Wow.
That's a beauty.
Duncan, thank you.
Sorry. My dad would probably be like, don't put that hippie shit in front of my ashes. But he'd think it was funny, actually. But yeah, you all are always here with me in my studio.
Well, let's talk about that. I mean, you're talking about your dad. We were wondering about your life as it is right now, though. First, we want to get to your earlier life. But what's been like for you? I mean, like how's it going? So much has changed since we've been together. You know,
yes.
You became a husband. You became a father.
Yes.
And you became a famous TV star. Duncan, it all happened.
Yeah, it's so what's beautiful, and you do know this, what's beautiful about having a child is it transcends all the other stuff in such an exponential way. It's such a beautiful reprioritization of things and such a contact with the divine. Now I understand baby Krishna. Now I understand that the symbolism of that and do y'all know, what's his name? He's with the Bronner folks, Bobcat. Do you know him? He's this amazing person I met at Burning Man.
Yes, he's amazing.
Amazing. He's this beautiful, I'm talking, he's like this incredibly beautiful, charismatic, radiant being. And he's like weirdly like my teachers, they'll always call me out of the blue, but at the perfect moment. And he did that just out of the blue, just randomly called me. This is some time after finding out about, like almost right when I was finding out I was going to be a dad. He just out of the blue called and he said, well, you've been knocking at the temple door for a long time, so eventually it's going to open. Exploded my brain, it's just like, how did you know? And why would you just call and say that? And, it was really beautiful. But that to me, I understand exactly what he meant now. It took some time to really understand it.
Well, do you think that he meant that it's something that you always really wanted, but you were just waiting for the right moment?
Yeah, I think he probably detected in me like, well, we all want that thing Gurdjieff talked about, or we all want the thing Crowley talked about, that invitation into the secret, into the mystery school, into that place that you kind of intuitively know is there, but you for some reason you feel like you're not good enough for it, or you haven't been invited in, or if you were invited in, you might mess things up, or who knows. And then I think that's a really healthy thing to want. Initiation. And so he probably detected that in me to some degree. And, being a dad himself, I think he knew like, oh, I mean, sure, you could get invited into some Masonic hall, or you could be Tolkien style cave wall could open up and you could be ushered into Shambhala, or you could be on the trampoline with a toddler who has decided to call all fruit non and is eating fruit with the juice running down his mouth and looking at you going, non. And it's like, oh, I'll take the toddler any day of the week, man. That's incredible. And, it blows your heart open. It just crushes you. That to me, I think is probably what he meant.
Wow.
Absolutely. It's the temple gates. You're asking for God. God arrives in the form of your child, and you experience a profound love that is you've only met in your partner. Yeah. But then it's like kind of infinitized by the love of the one that the two of you became. It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Well,
and congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you
to your sacred family.
Thank you. We
called it the parent training. We were feeling that, in our mid to late 30s, that we were, going to have the life training without the parent training if we didn't hurry up, that kind of thing. Like we really ought to. And we decided that we didn't want to miss out on the parent training. And it's been an incredible training. Isn't it already?
It's a training, and that is the best way that is what I've been thinking is like, oh yeah, this is a class. I think I kind of gotten in my head, like I think I was sort of imagining I was about to, I don't want to say graduate because that sounds ridiculous, and I didn't think that, but just sort of maybe retire, drop out. I don't know. But all of a sudden it's like, oh no, you're doing the parent training. And it's great. And it's painful too. I mean, it is, I think you would be, there's.
In what way?
Well, in the sense that, okay, what's that saying that they say in Jacob's Ladder, but it's a Meister Eckhart quote? The part of the soul that burns in hell is the part that clings to life. And when you're doing the parent training, the part of your soul that's going to burn and hurt is the part of your soul that's clinging to your own agenda.
Oh yeah.
Forget
and the life and their life where you don't want them to grow up. You want them to always it's yes. The constant letting go.
Yes, that. Oh my God, that. Oh, there's that. It's like this heartbreak because that form is it's changing, and they're going to learn how to lie, and they're going to learn to be manipulative, and they're going to learn to be deceptive because I am. You know what I mean? All the things that are in me will be in them. That, and you're like, but I do think it's one of the great. You get these winks from the universe. You get the psychedelic wink, which is a little vacation from materialism, or a little the curtain opens for a flash. We've talked about it. Obviously you're the curtain opening, but you get this. My wife said as we were looking at the baby, she's like, "Isn't it wild? This came from an orgasm." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that is another wink," And then this child, for a little bit, I don't know who they are, but they let the window stay open for a second, for a long time, actually, longer than most things. And then during that time, you're being, bathed in this kid's holy light. I'm not talking about my own kid, by the way. He's no more on my side than any other
Don't you
kid.
think your kid has holy light?
Of course they do.
Of course you do.
Of course they do. But you mean like all children.
Yes, that's what I mean. I didn't want to portray like we had like wise men are coming to the house or anything like that. I just mean for a second, like when you're around a dying person, when you're in the presence of a mother giving birth, and you realize that this is, for some reason, there's a secret here, that there's not much language to describe it. For some reason, you have that same DMT feeling. You're like, how do I know this place? I'm so familiar. I know this place, but I've never been in the presence of a birth or, the first time I saw someone was with someone dying, but yet there's that familiarity, that the implication being, oh, this is where we come from. This is, for a second, the conditioning or whatever it is vanishes, and you get this sense of, oh, home. So that's the beauty, I think, of the parent training. And I know I've got a lot. My wife the other day was saying, like, God, just wait till he's a teenager and his room stinks. It's like, oh, God, you're right. He's going to have a stinky room. Like I had
No,
a stinky
not
room.
necessarily, but he might. I don't know. Xena wasn't like that. She leaves her stuff all
It
over.
depends on
They are the way they are,
Yeah.
But anyway,
everyone's individual, but
it's fun every day.
To appreciate that them every day and whatever stage they're at. You're as parents, I think we do get a good dose of that orb of wonder, that just like can bubble over. If there's no major problems, then you can be in that probably the most joyous state of human life is the celebration of that, because it's the real thing. It is not just a pretend initiation. This is the real stuff. Yeah. And it really matters now that the soul is in your care.
And you try to be a better person. You really you become a better person because you try to be a better person for them. And you do get better. And I just wanted to say that my mother used to always say, when people get nervous about like, not enough money and not enough career and not enough in order to have a baby and to be ready to have a baby, she would say, babies bring money and success. And I couldn't help thinking of you having this child and then like having all this success.
It really is. I had heard that saying. There's a lot of different ways people say a baby comes with a sandwich under their arm.
Oh, is that right? I heard that one. Because you become a better person, you become more trusted a lot of times, or you can be, and then abundance.
Well, that's the other like not secret society aspect of it, is suddenly you are, when you're talking to parents, they know the pain and the joy, and it, and like
Alex, what do you call it? You call it the cult of parenthood.
It's the cult of parenthood, because it's kind of like when they're not parents, you kind of say, "Hey, it's really great. You should try it."
Yeah.
And it's the biggest cult on earth, and it's a beautiful thing, because you can compare notes and things and learn from each other, and you're driven to find each other in a way, usually because of play dates eventually and things like that as well. So friendships you'll never have imagined you would have chosen, you might find yourself engaged in, and it can broaden. They can, again, broaden us. That's
the cult. I'm deep in the cult, and I love it, and I don't want out. I like it, and I went through a dark period of like, God, I'm being completely domesticated here. What's going on? What am I turning into? And then suddenly I realized, like, no, this is not domestication. This is wild. Like, this thing on the outside looks mundane, but on the inside, this is just what you're saying. It's I have these moments where I'm thinking, my God, whatever the intelligent force in the universe is, trusted me with this being. This is no joke, man. This is like way bigger than a TV show and way bigger than a podcast and way bigger than anything. And then when you realize that, because, I think I have made the mistake of thinking that complexity is an indication of sophistication. And what a ridiculous thing to think. It's so crazy to think that. And when you're with a child, it's elemental. It's just it's the basic love, basic language, basic needs. And those basic things are the foundation of the whole universe. So you're in the deep, deep, deep core of things. And for me, the moment I realized that, that's when like all the pain that came from me thinking like, well, I mean, I guess threesomes are kind of out the window for a while, and we're going to have to give up the wilds. Whatever we were doing was wild, man. Hot tub parties and burners filling the house and people I didn't know in my bathtub. And like, all that stuff, that hurt for a second. I was like, I kind of enjoyed that. But now it's like, oh no, it's as glorious as that was, this is way more intense and way more satisfying and way more, on the outside, way more mundane. I mean, let's just face it.
Duncan, not everybody is, I mean, I bow to you because other people would continue on those kinds of exploits. And for you, that is like unacceptable. And that you feel that for your child, you have a way that you are going to be now. The other thing was the way that you were before.
Well, wait a minute. Are you saying maybe we should keep doing that? Because I'm not.
No, I'm saying some people would, though. Don't you think?
I think that some people.
I didn't. Yeah. Alex didn't. We were very traditional parents. But to me, it's the ultimate social sculpture that you can create the way you want it to be. Do you know what I mean? You are in charge. And if you see every moment of it as, your side of it anyway is of the kind of integrity and whatever it is that the core value of whatever you want to bring to it. Because we all have injuries from our past and our parents made mistakes like we are going to. And so, yeah, we're definitely going to, but it's like, how do you deal with that? Because that's just, the way we are is imperfect and flawed. We're human. And so, how are we going to deal with those flaws and how are we going to... So anyway, all this stuff about the sneaky room and everything, it's you may have to deal with that, but you may just get involved, activate, and when they're a teenager, and it's like, it's bliss.
Yes.
I'm just telling you.
I listen, I agree with you. And, again, yeah. And also there are ways to carve out wild Dionysus, we can do it. It's just, around, you do these little kids, they just need stability. They just need
absolutely.
Here's how it is in the morning. This is what it's like in the afternoon. Here's how we go to bed. Oh my God, why are we talking about parents? But I got to say this.
Okay. I love this. They love that, by the way, what you're doing. Morning, afternoon, evening.
We sing to him now at night. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. He gets this big smile.
Oh, how old is he?
17 months.
Oh my God.
He'll start patting your arm and finally the last thing I'll say, the first time he said dad to me, this is the first wrecking ball to my heart, is I'm sitting with him on the couch or outside, sitting with him outside, and he literally leans into my ear and whispers, "Da." Oh, whispered it in my ear. It was just,
wow.
How did you know to do that? What you've been saving it out? Because I've been worried he hadn't been saying, "Dad, you're gonna do it like that." Just, you know what I mean?
How did he know to do that syllable first, though, Duncan? Really? I mean, that is the first syllable of most children. And how do they know to do that syllable first? Because, the power source, maybe the center of the family. I mean, Ma comes later. Really?
All of it is such a wild mystery. I don't know. They come with more than a sandwich under their arm. I think they come with associates. He
manual.
Yes.
Come with a manual.
I think you're right. Spiritual associates.
Yes.
Right.
That have been watching you and that have been conspiring with you.
I agree. I think it helps to allow that possibility to exist as a parent. How is it that when we put him in front of a picture of Neem Karoli Baba, he laughs and like babbles like he's been like they've been hanging out, just like, but this familiar laughter. It's like, and what I love about like Raghu, the Ramdas people, when they met him, they hold him and they look at him. I think Raghu even looked at him and said, "Who are you?" Like, do we know you?
Yeah.
Where are you?
Did you feel this?
Yeah.
And this is why there's so many reincarnations, in Buddhism.
Look, yeah, we've got a pretty strange tribe, so I think they probably selective, I feel like with the visionary artists, in fact, and you might feel this even with your comedian friends or philosopher friends, that there is a renegade tribe of angels that want to work with the psychedelic culture and conspire with us to inflict love on this world, and to bring
wage love,
waging peace, and I have to just say what a hero I think you are for bringing this love into the world with your family and taking care of them so well, and with bringing that kind of love and care to the world through your art, through your words, through your conversations with people, and through the way that you really worked with a team of geniuses to concoct a psychedelic brew for the mind of us sequestered people now. We're a captive audience, ready to go down multiple rabbit holes in your reality.
Devouring your show. They're devouring your show, aren't
amazing.
they? Everybody's got to, you have to like ration yourself. Like Alex and I were rationing. Like we have to watch like one a week. Oh, can we do two? We'll do two. Okay.
Oh, y'all are thank you.
With rationing, you're going to have to just. It's an incredible show. What kind of feedback are you getting? Tell us something.
People, the feedback is really, really good. We're getting great reviews. And the New York Times wrote a great piece on it. The LA Times wrote a great piece on it. It's been getting really, really, really good reviews, and which are great. But the part that is really intense are the like personal messages from people, talking about. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't finished the series yet, but
we've seen it.
We've seen it all.
Great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no. And then again, last night we watched it all again.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, y'all are so sweet. That last episode with my mom, the people are reaching out saying, my mom died when I was a kid, or my mom passed away a few years ago, and this has helped them, talk to their moms, because that cult of parenthood, I think, and what you were saying, like suddenly you're friends with people normally you might not necessarily interact with, but because archetypically you're experiencing these parental roles, it transcends your own little identity, and you're a dad talking to a dad talking to a mom talking to a mom. And so I think that a dying person, and my mom was dying, and was very close to passing away during that podcast, at least parts of it. They're two sort of merged together. You get this archetypical mother, and I feel like she gets to be the mom to people who maybe didn't get to have that conversation with their mom. That was so generous of you to do that.
She was such an incredible, you see where your curiosity and your amazing intelligence comes from too, and her psychological training and everything. I loved her instructions. For you to place meditation instructions inside of a episode, along with all of the points that philosophically that are made on the way to getting to mom.
And an image of Ram Dass.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to cry now in a minute.
That was before he passed too. We didn't.
Really?
Yeah. That was before he passed, and then suddenly it meant something else. Yeah. Well, I do want to say that this. I hope that this shows y'all the work that you're doing for the world, because, those encounters I had with you when I would come and visit you and you would cook for me, but then also in just hanging out with you, you would articulate a lot of deep. Your teachers and you about art. You would teach me about art. And at that time, especially visually, I didn't think of myself as much as a visual artist. I don't to this day, actually. But I got to be with visual artists. And also I got the courage to not be afraid to take visions from the psychedelic experiences I had and put them into the show. And I remember the conversations I had with you regarding being cartographers of this psychedelic space. And I remember how empowering that was, because it's this, I guess the best way to describe it is I'm sitting in this boardroom at Netflix, and it also shows how cool Netflix is. And there's these lantern-headed bovine creatures that you take green oil from and you rub it onto the simulator. And so I had been at Burning Man smoking DMT and had this crazy vision where I looked down and there's one of those things. And I remember looking at it and thinking how odd it was that I would just be seeing that. I mean, where's the machine elves? Where's the stuff? I'm looking at this essentially like a cow with a technological lantern head that seems vaguely aware of me, like in the way a cow is aware of people, not really concerned with me at all. And I remember like having this, not a letdown feeling, because it's like, holy shit, it's a bovine creature with a technological lantern head. What is that? And then I remember looking away and having, my other favorite psychedelics, LSD, being, I don't want to hierarchize psychedelics, but with LSD, you look away, generally you look back, it's not there anymore. That's been my experience. But I look back and it's still there. It's just moved it's slowly walked a few feet ahead. So I'm in this boardroom at Netflix and telling them, and that, that lantern head drawing, I saw that on DMT at Burning Man. And the executives were like, wow, cool. That's cool. There was no stigma. They loved it, and I got that courage from y'all. That is what you do for the world. That's part of what you do, aside from the visual art you're putting out, is that you give people the courage to not just disregard these visionary states.
All right.
And, it's
no. I mean, really. I mean, we've come a long way, babies. We really have.
Don't be disregarded for it.
We used to go to places where Alex was asked not to speak about it, about psychedelics, and of course he would be very gracious, and then he would speak about it anyway. And a handful of people would leave maybe, and the rest of them were just like, Everybody wants to know this stuff, and people are very excited to hear about it. So I'm, seeing your show, it was so breakthrough. I mean, it was just everything about it was like in another realm. I remember feeling that rarely through history and in like evolutionary terms about like the way comedy changed and television changed when Pee-wee's Playhouse came on. Those people, that group of people were very strong. They're all like very strong people, and they had to do it as a children's show. There was no Adult Swim at the time. It was like the adults didn't watch cartoons without their children then. I mean, it sounds crazy, but, and I remember seeing that, and it's breakthrough. I saw your thing, and we just couldn't stop watching it. And it was like that. I mean, this changes the playing field in a weird way. People are going to be copying you all over the place, but you are such an... I want to know more about how they work together, too.
Yeah, exactly. I think of the idea of the tincture, that one drop into it like a liquid, like that's behind you, can change the entire liquid.
Tone.
So when you drop a spiritual reality, which is the thing that is missing everywhere.
Yeah.
You bring the spiritual reality into the maelstrom, the catastrophe of reality that people are familiar with.
Yeah.
You're showing the light. You're showing it's mortality and impermanence is not the only through line in the Midnight Gospel. There is also the potential of the other side that you're always pointing to. And I that's a spiritual opening. And only someone who's gone there personally and is willing to bring guests in that can help inform people. You know, that's one of the things that I think is really courageous of you and Netflix and all of your team. Thanks. You know, to get on board the opening up of the possibility of spirit in a wholly new framework.
This is truly like, this is why Titmouse, this production company, is so incredible, because they are, you know, it's homegrown artists. They empower people. They do. I don't mean to keep, I hope I don't seem like I don't know what the word is, blowing your horn too much, y'all, but you really have been a huge impact on me artistically, as you have for so many people. You're doing the same thing over there at CoSM. You know, it's like you're growing these artists. They do it at the Comedy Store. And like, when that's happening, you know, you end up getting true novelty. And so our team was composed of like outsiders and people who understood the psychedelic space for sure. And some people who understood the space just via different methods, or just the, you know, essence of making that crazy decision that you're going to be an individual no matter what at all costs, you know, true individualists, you know, and that is its own form of psychedelic. And it's definitely going to send you into the land of Nod, where Cain ended up, you know. It's going to send you into the land of Nod. And I want to go back, because you said something really, you just said it, which to me is like wild. Of course you would just say it though, because you say it with your art, but you mentioned these angels that you're talking about who want to wage a war of love. And so this is the thing that I'm only saying it because you said it first, because that is something that, you know, I had all these wonderful visions on ketamine, and many of them made it into the show. And one of them was just exactly what you said. It was this sort of transmission of like, it was like, you know how it is, like you are going to take, humans are like a player piano, and you're going to take your cymbal set, and that's going to be the symphony that's played by whatever the spirit is that you contacted. And so that's why there's going to be variance in these articulations. But, you know, the message was something along the lines of, this is just what we do. You see, there's kind of like a dam around the place that you're in right now, or like this realm that you're in right now. But good news, the dam is cracking, and it's leaking love all over the place. And they really, at this point, they can't stop it. They're going to make it seem like they can, but it's way too late. It's like we're looking at like structural collapse in the best way possible all over the damn thing. No pun intended. Oh, that's a dad joke, and it sucks, and I didn't intend it. But so suddenly you realize that just the moment you make the vaguest intention of being part of helping that collapse of that ridiculous dam that has been constructed in the face of all this love, even if you're the sloppiest, even if you're the drunkest or a maniac or whatever, they really will help. They sign you on. And somewhere in there, I think there is this ability to potentially channel to some degree something that's real that right now people call the imagination. And to me, that's what the Midnight Gospel, when I think about it, I think, we have a group brain. Pendleton Ward, who made Adventure Time, facilitated a group mind. He empowered everybody we were working with to have an equal say creatively in what we were doing, in the sense there, apparently on some productions, it can accidentally become semi-fascist. People become terrified of criticism. They become terrified of pointing things out, or they are afraid to give their own idea about things, not because they're afraid they'll be rejected, but they'll be fired. And so Pendleton produced this just as much in this brilliant way, melted all those boundaries down. And so then we got a group mind. And I think that group mind did a kind of SETI, sort of psychedelic SETI, radio telescope, and tuned into a place that we called the Chromatic Ribbon. It has, I think, a lot of different names. And I'm not saying that place, it's a literal place, but I did get one of the strangest messages I got from people is they said, I've been to that place. I know that place. I saw your show before it came out. Like stuff like that.
I live there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
That.
How did you find me?
I've seen that.
Right.
People say that about really,
Clancy.
really well done visionary art, don't they?
Absolutely.
It's one of the things that they say when visionary art is compelling is I've been there. I've seen that. Now, I don't say that about a lot of other art, but that art is like, that's kind of a visual effect that you've like experienced as well in the world.
Yeah. Well, so, okay, then how did the premise and the entire thing arise? Was there the title first? Was it just you and Pendleton, bullshitting one day? What's the genesis?
Okay, so Pendleton had this great idea for a way to turn podcasts into animation, which was the nucleus of it was what happens if we take podcast dialogue and put it to Indiana Jones. So like you have this like crazy action, but people are having these philosophical conversations.
Exactly. What's so amazing.
Yeah.
What's going on the screen does not have to have anything to do with what's going on in your conversation, and you make the most of that. That's sort of the I guess the angle that he discovered, because you see I love the many attempts people are making to take the medium of podcasting and put it on to TV, because I think podcasting is now I'm definitely tooting my own horn. I think it's just a very important medium because it shows vulnerability and it shows humanity in a way that you don't see on late night television or television in general. There's this like, it's not perfect. Things like sometimes are interesting and then you zone out. And, it shows just like human conversation, so I love that people have been trying and are perfecting that, how to like bring vulnerability to the medium of TV, especially animation. But so anyway, that was the nucleus, and then we had to create a world around it. I have always been fascinated with simulation theory and multiverse theory, and it's such a riot the way you have the head goes in, Clancy's head goes into this vagina, and it's just like, and then it's birthed into like a new realm.
Now that's Pendleton's genius, because I think when I was thinking of what the simulator would look like, it was technological, but I think he just drew it. But I don't think Pendleton was thinking, listen, if we're going to like put a universe inside a thing, let's make it a womb. Let's make it womb-like, because what is the universe held in? It's like the great cosmic womb. And that's his brilliance. And, and also it functions as a funny joke too. Because let's face it, you've got this like guy putting his head in a vulva. You know what I mean?
So funny, but it's so brilliant.
Yeah.
And then he launches like an orgasm, into the universe and into some other place that he gets to have some degree of choice in. But anything can happen day. It's just like anything can happen day.
Yeah.
So you just don't know where you're going. But he always comes out okay and seems fairly confident.
Well, that's his problem. I think that's the thing is like this is sort of the, I hate you. The word bores me a little bit, but I in my old age now, I do get it. This concept of integration, when I was younger, just chomping at, when you're at that age where the thing that's frustrating about acid is you have to wait a day in between trips, that's like the great frustration. And it's like, and you're pissed because it's expensive. But like, when what I mean? You're like, when you're in, I don't want to say when, but let's say college, and you're like, you don't have a lot of money, and you know that if you want to take it the next day, you're gonna have to double up the dose.
Oh.
And it's frustrating, and you're like, you gotta wait a day, but you don't want to, so you're not really integrating what's happening. You're like, you're wanting to go live in that space, and I get wanting to live in that space. But I think Clancy's he's like having some integration problems with this. He's going into these places, picking up all this data, and I think it is dropping deep down into his soul, like that tincture you're talking about. But he's a slow learner, and so I think that's sort of what's one of the like stories of it is like he's not integrating. He's kind of addicted in this weird. He's got this sort of. He wants to keep going in and going in and going in.
Doesn't care. Nothing. There's nothing that the guy could say, that the machine could tell him that would stop him from just moving forward into the next dimension. He can't wait to get out of there, wherever it is, in that little trailer. Yeah. He's such a solitary archetype, a loner, but he integrates well with other people. He gets into every world and he does well. Right?
He's very sociable, and charming. Even
just like
no matter what dimension, and in that way brings your kind of like almost puppy like curiosity and kind of about whatever conditions are going on, and I think that the chaos that is formulated, and the part of the chaos is Clancy's cluelessness. We're worried for him. Didn't he see the virus thing? It's like week after week things are compounding. And I'm curious. Like, did you have a group epiphany about the through line of it, or did you go back over things? I mean, how did you because it feels sequenced.
Well, it's, this is what I love. David Nichtern, one of my teachers, he teaches meditation. I talked to him about it. He said, things like that, they crystallize, and that's one of the perplexing things about it. And is that you look, like, for example, like if you look at Clancy, he's the fool on the tarot deck. He has a little dog. He's not going off a cliff. He's going into a universe simulator, and he's doing that over and over again. But he's doing it in this completely ridiculous way, not realizing what you're saying is that everything's being compounded, and you can't stay the fool forever. You're either going to die, or you're going to book. I think the next one's the magician or something like that. But you just don't stay the fool forever. Part of you can should always have that in you. I think it's a beautiful thing. But
there's the risk that you're willing to take.
Yes.
I mean, there's just, the fool is willing to go into abandoned. He's willing to step over the cliff.
They're courageous.
Or go into the simulator. Whatever it is, they are launching forward.
Foolhardy.
Such courage.
There is a courageousness that is disastrous, and I think that's the that is so all of a sudden the dog. I never was there a conversation where like, hey, let's make Clancy the archetype of the Rider-Waite fool tarot card, and give him a dog, and we'll play the cliff. We didn't. What happened is in the first episode, President Dr. Drew has this cute dog, Charlotte. And at the end of the episode, we're all sitting there realizing, like, wait, what happens to Charlotte? We can't just let...
We need her.
We can't let this little dog, like, all her guardian just got eaten by zombies. We can't leave Charlotte to live in a zombie apocalypse.
Charlotte's going to have a spin-off, actually. She's going to be
the survivor.
Very popular.
Yeah, so those decisions are made in the moment, and then suddenly now you have the fool archetype, but there was no intentionality behind it. But now you've got this guy with a little dog at his feet, but that was not any one person. And I think when you facilitate a group mind, expect archetypes. If you want to lay a trap for archetypes, make a group mind, and then suddenly they'll just show up on their own. And then whatever your particular it's like when you throw paint on the invisible man suddenly, or woman, or whatever, invisible creature, suddenly, there
Revealed.
it is. And I think these archetypes, if enough people throw enough of their love or whatever onto it, these forms are going to appear on their own. And without having to force them at all. That being said, I mean, there was 120 people working on this show.
Who were there?
We had, at the writing room, we had Maja Da'u, who is this wonderful witch. And we had Jason Louv, who's an occult scholar. We opened as many portals as we could. And also on the crew, God only knows who was working on that show. I mean it. Like, I don't know how many Freemasons were working on the show or how many people really literally were in secret societies showed up for the game. I have no idea. So, I just know my contribution to it. And one thing's for certain, I was not trying. I put a lantern-headed cow thing that I saw in DMT, but somehow within it, woven into it, all these other things just naturally live inside of that place now.
And the scripts are yours. You are, a great, writer of the show. You are, the talent of the show. You're the writer of the show, and you're a conceptualizer. It's like it's a great team.
Well,
it was a great team.
I was curious about what some of the other visions that you were embedding in in the episodes.
Thank you so much for asking me that. I just went through this ketamine phase, and and then I got habituated to it, and now I can't do it anymore because it's like, it's so sticky, man. That particular substance is so sticky, and it's like the tolerance, you get this tolerance, and then nothing's happening anymore, unless you want to start injecting it, which, again, what am I going to do? Sit in my office injecting ketamine with a toddler in the house? You can't. I'm just saying, for me, I think what happened is I was granted access to Behind the Dam for a little while. Like, the way Behind the Dam decided to talk to me was via the ketamine teacher. And, now I think it gave me all the info, and I'm done. I don't mean in a bad breakup way or anything. It's just like, thank you. I think there's,
but you got a lesson.
Yes, that's it.
So what were some of them that wound up in the show?
Okay, so one of the visions was, and ketamine is such an alien psychedelic. So one of the crazy visions was this city that was powered by meat, that had these glass tubes.
That's right.
That meat was running through, and that the meat was like electricity here. And there were these beings that were weirdly
digesting.
They were proud of the meat flow. They were somehow they liked watching the meat flow through the tubes. They thought it was powerful and elite to live in a apartment close to meat flowing through tubes. The meat in the vision was very pink. It wasn't rotting at all. It was very fresh meat flowing through the tubes. But then, and that was the vision. I mean, again, it's this is what I'm getting. What am I going to do? I get lantern-headed cows, meat flowing through tubes. Where are my machine elves? But after that vision, I started thinking my God, what would happen if in that city the meat stopped flowing? Something went wrong. And then it started breaking down. And now there's just rotting meat everywhere. And then these flies would come, and they would probably massive swarms of flies would descend on the city. People would be choking and just dying from disease in this apocalyptic landscape. And so I took that idea, presented it to this room of my friend Brendan Walsh, who's this brilliant comedy writer, and, again, Jason Louv, and just different Weird Al, and then they take that, and Emo Phillips, they take that.
I remember him. Jeez.
Yeah, he's the best. They took all of that and then transformed it into So like my friend Brendan is like, oh yeah, he asked a really logical question, which is like, what does the meat come from? And then it's like, oh, deer dogs. These like weird deer dogs live in the outskirts of the city that they inject with some kind of like opiate called Namastex. And then but then we'd seen a picture of a meat clown. Have you seen these, the meat clowns? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I mean, the episode that I'm not sure if I've seen a meat clown.
I'm going to show you one right now. This is the glory of...
You have clowns in a number of episodes.
But I do... I remember your interview on the deer dog that continued through the meat tube.
Yeah, well, that right.
You're being digested, but you are still in conversation. It's like My Dinner with Andre, except in meat tubes.
That's yeah, right, exactly, because it's sort of like, you know, and I don't want to do any kind of interpretation of the show because I think it robs people of the reflective quality of it. So I'll tell you sort of my interpretation of that, but that's not the right interpretation. It's just my interpretation of it is just this idea that we're all being sort of aerosolized by time. You know, we are having these conversations as we're being like pulverized by circumstance, and you know, that's the poignant reality to me of, or one of the poignant realities. That to cut from poignant reality, can you see on the screen there?
Did you really?
Wow.
That's something that really exists and that you really found.
That was one of the inspirations for these clowns.
Right.
This was, it's like a way people like, I guess, I don't know. It's like, it's a style of making like some kind of salami monstrosity or something like that.
It's bologna. Did you ever eat bologna going to school?
I did. Yeah, I eat bologna.
Oh, did I? I did.
Yeah, I ate bologna, and someone came up with this idea of like carving a face in it. And
Love
you know,
it.
this is again all of what happens when you're collaborating with people is because, you know, I don't remember who said it, but someone's like, "What about those meat clowns?" And, you know, like I don't know what you're talking. What meat clowns? And then that became a piece of it. But that was one of the visions from the ketamine universe. And then there was a lot of other ones too, y'all. I mean, it sounds so wild, but it's just, you know, I hate the term channeling, and I think it just adds this ridiculous silliness and complexity to like whatever the inspiration is. But I just can't explain it any better than saying I just saw a lot of things that ended up in the show as though I was just seeing a place. Like I knew, you know, there's certain words in it that we built the world knowing that people would not see that world, knowing that like huge swaths of how the simulator works and the technicalities of what that is, or what, you know, Velnon Industries or the progenitor, or the religion of the ribbon, or the sector wars, all these things that could easily sound like we're just making up sci-fi words. They were all, it's a huge place that I saw parts of, and my mind converted it into whatever, you know, those things are. You know, what, for example, there's you'll hear in his neighbor says Crexing, and so Crex. So a simulator, a healthy simulator, this is things that like were facilitated by ketamine. A healthy simulator produces this kind of really nice, sweet perspiration, I guess you could say, like a dew, so to speak. It's very sweet. It's nice. And people on the chromatic ribbon actually use it to sugar their drinks, and you can use it to, and it also has a very mild psychoactive effect. So you don't just get to harvest technology from the simulators, but you could take the dew from the simulator.
It'll keep you high.
Okay, yeah, it gets you a little high. So anyway, if you don't care for your simulator, then what happens is it starts sweating this noxious poison called Crex, which is, if you knew how to do it, you could make a actual like killing poison. In the early days of the ribbon, they would use that stuff to assassinate people, creks. But generally, like that's like old medieval shit. Like no one does that anymore. But the stink of creks brings from the wobble zones creks flies, which are these terrible stinging flies that live in the wobble. And so there's a saying on the ribbon, which is, where there's creks flies, you'll find a newcomer. Because people who don't know how to take care of their simulators are always plagued by these creks flies, which is why you never want to live next to a newcomer, because the creks flies are going to come onto your land. And it's just like, malarial mosquitoes or something. So this was all stuff that like I saw. Sort of. It just popped into my head. I remember sitting there writing it, thinking like, what is this? What is this? What is this coming from? I don't know what this is coming from. And just like it was like I was looking at a book or something. And I can't explain it. It was really ecstatic though. It felt so good to have that sort of, everyone wants that as an artist. You don't get it all the time. I don't. You guys
want
might.
Availability to your imagination, which sounds like is what you have in abundance. It's like, to me, I mean, I remember these experiences and I do not remember anything that I wrote down at the time. I didn't write at all. I mean, it was more like a sacred ritual where we lay there and just, had a 55-minute journey. Yeah. And it was, and we said at the time that it was like Alka-Seltzer being dropped into water, and that we were, like then bubbles. And that the bubbles were like rising and textural, moving through space.
Mm-hmm.
And he's lost.
Yeah. And we were in the cosmic taffy pole.
That's right. It's a cosmic taffy pole. It's an Alka-Seltzer dropped in water. It's an experiential, textural journey of some speed, it seemed to me. So, but anyway, that was amazing. But I really did resonate when you were meat and you were just being digested. That felt very ketamine-like. I could really see that when you said it. Yeah. Oh yeah,
that. Yeah, because it puts you in the. That's something so spectacular about it for me is the when you're a lot of people don't want to go in the K-hole. People, and I understand, don't want to go into the K-hole because you're basically. You're going to be assimilated or, you're going to be, you see your cremation ash with sentience attached to it. And then you're a field of flowers. And then you're on the mothership. And then you're in the hell realms. And then you're, I can remember like, by the way, just so everyone knows, this is before I had a baby. This is like before Forrest came into the world, to some degree. And then anytime we did it was out, we leave the house. We have a big, intense rules about this. I just don't want to seem like an irresponsible parent. We go away from the house when grandmother comes and takes care of the baby. I really don't want to in any way sound like and I don't mean to be an old man here, but man, this is a thing you don't do with kids in the house. Like you can't.
Thank you. I think you're absolutely right. We have a grown up we have a grown up in this world who's extremely, I don't know, takes care of herself. And we never did it in front of her, but that doesn't mean that you should give it up if you feel that it's worthwhile for you.
You can always create an opening when the time is right.
Yes, exactly. And you have to listen to that.
Yeah, and so part of being parents is recognizing the responsibility of that foremost. But there are also times when grandmother is available and weekends off happen.
Yes,
on occasion.
That's right.
Don't we do these things for ourselves? These are things that enrich us, that make us better people.
Yeah.
But we don't do them in front of our children when they're young because it scares them, or we don't want to be responsible for them at that moment. We want it to be about ourselves.
Yeah.
And we really need to enrich ourselves when we're parents.
That's right.
You don't give up those experiences just across the board. Although I must say, we gave it up to a large degree.
That's right.
But you do it a little bit and you come back to it too. It's such a trip just to have a child. You feel like you're on some journey. You can't wait for every moment to see what comes up next,
That's right. Take your fishing expeditions. Take your, go be a hunter-gatherer in that realm, but and have the child taken care of, particularly with, it's like with ketamine, it's like, what are you going to be, like drooling in a K-hole? What happens if the baby starts choking? What happens if there's an emergency? That's the rest of your life. You will always be looked at as one of the worst possible things out there. It's really serious. So anyway, I'm sorry to do like some kind of public service announcement. I just don't want to put out there that there's a lackadaisical approach we have towards these states. And even if you don't have a kid, holy shit, who are you talking to? What is this place? This is why I love what y'all are doing over there. I'm not implying that you've built a temple because you understand sacred spaces. And this is a sacred space to me. And it's a precious place, and it deserves respect in a loving kind of way. So there's my public service announcement.
Oh, you're so
I'm
good.
sorry.
You've always been very good to us, Duncan, when it comes to, singing out our praises in the most wonderful way. We've used you mercilessly, in our Kickstarter and whatever.
Good.
You've been so helpful to us, and you have been very much a mentor in the and a leader in the podcast realm. We always wanted to do it, but now we finally are here with you. I wanted to get one more thing, that I wanted to ask you about, and that is the thread about death in the Midnight Gospel. There seems to be a thread with it almost. Would you say it's in every episode where death becomes almost a character in the script?
Yes. It's a show about. It's definitely a show. It's a show about death. That at least the first season is about death, and it's about letting go, and it's about questioning whether you're alive. Actually, I think that's an important thing to ask yourself. Every day is if you're alive, not biologically alive, but alive, and why is it that there's this? Why is Clancy just decided these beings in his universe simulator aren't alive, and he accidentally produces, in the chromatic ribbon, it's a real problem, which is that for them to successfully exploit these beings, they have to imagine they're somehow, because they're not real, they're simulated. And to me, it's this, when you live in a world where you're just doing the thing where I'm alive, my family's alive, but trees, I don't know. There are these pretty things out there waving in the wind, or my dogs, they're not living their own life. They're kind of there, but they're kind of like robotic things, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is the gift that from the psychedelic realm that we get, is the reconnection with every level of this living universe that we're in. And so to articulate that, I think we need death to be the teacher in that regard, the understanding, because then we have at least something compelling us to really connect right now into the thing. So I guess the best way to put it is, one of the best dishwashing experiences I ever had was in the beginning of the pandemic, when we didn't know what this was. We still don't. It's a novel coronavirus. We don't know what this is. But at the time, we didn't know, is this smallpox? Is it going to be like HIV, and people who get it have it forever? Can you get reinfected with it? Is it going to mutate and kill all of us? Is this it? Is this the apocalypse? Some of us are still wondering that. But in the very beginning, we had no data. And I remember washing the dishes in that, suddenly being thrust into, I don't know if I've got it. I don't know if my family has it. This might be the last time I wash dishes. I might come to on a ventilator and then fall asleep again, and then that's it for the dream of this life. That was a very powerful moment for me, washing dishes. Similarly, when someone you love passes, you get that reminder. And because when I was hanging out with my mom, I didn't want to do that podcast. Not because I didn't want to do it, but because I knew that'd be the last podcast I did with her. And I didn't want to do that. But that was a precious conversation, because it was finite, and it was we both knew that, and she knew she had to get a lot of information in that conversation, and she also knew at the time I was Clancy, a fool, not integrating anything, not wanting to deal with my mom's passing, and her dropping her body, and my dad passing, and then the baby coming. All these contacts with the angels that you were talking about up front, or the thing behind the dam, or the love field, or whatever you want to call it, all of these contacts, you might miss them if you aren't fully aware of the precarious nature of your impermanence. You're not going to be here that long. And the moment you realize that it's not a dire thing, and you don't start putting on black lipstick or what you can, but what has happened for me is you reconnect with every single level of reality, and that I think is what happened with Clancy. That's why we call it the Midnight Gospel too, is because the doomsday clock. We're always 3 seconds to midnight, but yet even here, the light is shining through. And that to me is a very revolutionary concept that I've learned from y'all. How about that?
God.
How about that? Because that's what you do. You shine the light through, because you're artists and teachers. You don't have to be teachers. You could do your art. It'd probably be in some ways somewhat easier. I've seen you painting together. I've been in your workshop. And I remember when and I'm sorry, I'm always tooting your horn and I will never stop. But I remember sitting in your workshop, the realization was you don't have to go to India to meet them. Sometimes they're in upstate New York. Sometimes they're painting and giving you chicken and simultaneously teaching you about the great mysteries. And so all of us, I think, are very lucky that you all have decided to share your lives with us, not just with your art, which is already mind-blowing, but with your teaching. I'm very grateful to you personally and always will be. So thank you.
Duncan, thank you, our mentor. We so appreciate you. And thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a wonderful time.
We love you so much.
Love you too.
Are looking forward to a future of Duncan Trussell, psychedelic visionary media.
It's coming. And more than that, what's next is I'm coming to upstate New York as soon as this is over with my little boy, so he can hang out with y'all. That's all I want to do, is see him running around CoSM. That's it.
Duncan, the whole house is yours. We would love you.
Thank you.
All. Bring your whole family. We love it.
Yes, that's what I'd like.
Thank you again for listening to the CoSM Podcast. To stay up to date on any future podcasts or virtual events, please be sure to follow Chapel of Sacred Mirrors on Instagram and Facebook, and subscribe to the podcast on all major platforms. And if you haven't already, please be sure to check out The Midnight Gospel, which is now streaming on Netflix, and Duncan's own podcast, The Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Thank you to everyone who has made a donation during this time. Every donation is a stand for the future of CoSM and allows us to continue to bring inspiring and uplifting content like this to our community. You can make a donation by going to buildentheon.com. And thank you to Deca for the soundtrack to this podcast. You can find Deca on YouTube, Spotify, and Bandcamp.